Folks, just remember that we've got a stack of those Bibles over on the side, and you're encouraged just to grab one if you haven't brought one along with you, or if you want one at home. We can get plenty more. I'm going to be reading from 1 Peter and chapter 4. Peter is writing to the established church and trying to encourage them. Really trying to, folks are going through, it's some considerable time after Jesus has died, after the Apostle Paul's been on his ministry, setting up churches through the whole of the Mediterranean. And Peter is now writing a letter to those churches, some of whom are going through pretty tough times. And he's kind of explaining what it means to live in those in that kind of situation, with the kind of pressures that they face. And in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 7, he says this, and I'm reading from the New International Version. The end of all things is near. Therefore, be alert and of sober mind so that you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength that God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Well, folks, you don't need me to tell you that we live in difficult times. I've got here the website up of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. They are the keepers, some of you know this already, of the doomsday clock. The doomsday clock. There is such a thing. Can you believe it? And from time to time, they reset the time on the doomsday clock. And the headline on the 23rd of January 2024 was, "It is still 90 seconds to midnight, a moment of historic danger." That's the situation as they put it. That's the way that they see the world around us. It is a time of great kind of danger, a time of just the whole world is going through a time of stress. And we see that in terms of conflict, and we see that in terms of climate, and we see that in terms of community, and in terms of cultures, just in terms of the so many pressures around the world. And you can think about it in different ways. We have to collect food to help people through difficult times because they're facing such testing times on their finances. We've got problems really not very far away from any of us that people are going through in relation to substance misuse and things like that. And then the problems just seem to grow and grow, and we only have to step into Europe, and we're at Ukraine, and we go further afield and we find bigger and bigger and bigger problems and issues that hover over us. And I know that a joke used to be often made of this statement. The old man standing out there with it from a King James version, the end is nigh, with his little sign. But the reality is, and it's not just Peter's opinion here, the end of all things is near. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists who are not religious folk, who are not generally people who maybe even share our faith. They are saying, guys, listen, we live in difficult times. Guys, listen, we need to treat this seriously and carefully. And here's the thing, that as we begin to understand the context of what it means to serve, what we need to do is we need to understand the times we live in, because depending on the time that you're in, you live in a different sort of way. When you're on holiday and you have abundant leisure time, you can live in a certain way. And when you are at work and facing a deadline that comes up on Friday or needy clients tomorrow, you live in another sort of way. So you need to understand the times that you live in. You need to understand what it is that's going on in order to do the right thing at the right time. Because it's really easy to kind of go, well, you know what? I'm busy today. I don't need to do, and we kind of think, well, there's always another opportunity, or we just think it's not important. But no, Peter says, listen, folks, listen, the end of all things is near. And this perhaps he's thinking maybe as a disciple of Jesus, he's thinking of all the stories that Jesus told about someone going away and coming back, about being ready for a moment, for a certain time, about not being asleep when you were asked to watch. And Peter's actually been through that himself. He understands what it's been to have got the times wrong. You know, there he was in the garden with Jesus, and he messed up big time. Because Jesus asked him to watch and pray with him, and what did he do? He just went to sleep. And then Jesus said, listen, you're going to deny me 3 times. And he said, no, I'm never going to do that. But he hadn't prepared himself, and so he did. And so this older and wiser man who's been through it says, listen. Understand the times that you're in, because that matters. It matters in the context of what we do, and it matters in the context of our service. It's the context for the time that we live. Now, there's 4 consequences of that he then gives us here in 1 Peter chapter 4. He says, because of the times we live in, therefore be alert and of sober mind so that you may pray. So I've summarized this as think. Think about where you're at. Be alert. It calls for a clear state of mind. You need to be able to see things for what they are and then work out what to do. You need to be able to actually know what it is that you need to ask for. You need to know how to ask for that assistance and help. And that's what prayer is. Be alert and of sober mind so that you may pray. Because you know the kind of times you live in, think about it. That's number 1. Consequence number 1. Be alert. Think. Consequence number 2 is love. Love each other deeply. Love, he says here, above all, love each other deeply. Why? Because love covers over a multitude of sins. You know, and you don't need me to tell you this, do you? We're all human, and so we all mess up. However much we want to get things right, there's times when we haven't had enough sleep, or there's times where we're a bit sore. There's times where we go through the day like that sort of bear with a sore head, And we don't even need to have times like that. There are times where just because we see maybe something that suits us, or we're not thinking about others, that we mess up. We mess up in relation to other people. We say the wrong thing. We do the wrong thing. And in any community, we experience that. In the community of the church, we experience it quite a bit because we're trying to get along together. We're trying to do stuff together. We're trying to accomplish things together. And the way that somebody else does it is different from the way that I would do it. And then we bring a third person into the mix. They do it completely differently. And suddenly we're left with a slight bit of friction between us because we're not quite working at things in exactly the same way. So we need something to oil the mechanisms that enable it to work. You know, when any gearbox or mechanism is put together, it needs something to lubricate it. It needs something to enable those cogs and gears to come together smoothly. What is the lubrication but love? Love each other deeply. You know, if you think you love, you need to go to a deeper level, right? If we're going to encourage people to serve in our church, we need to love more. We need to help people understand that they're only going to be met by love and understanding. They're only going to be met by the opportunity to experience love. Because you know what? Love, and it says here, says Peter, who again, has he not experienced this firsthand from the hands of the Master Savior Jesus himself? Peter is the one who knows that love covers a multitude of sins. He's experienced it. He's the one who denied Jesus. He's the one who seemed to walk away from him. And Jesus, when he was risen, embraced Peter and brought him back into the fold. Jesus took Peter back. Do you remember that amazing exchange that's recorded at the end of John where Jesus says to him, "Do you love me?" He says, he's really hurting. "Lord, you know I love you." And Jesus asks him again, and then a third time. And by this point, Peter's nearly breaking down and he says, "Lord, you know I love you." Love covers a multitude of sins. Do you love Jesus? Do you love Jesus? Well, you don't have to wait to get right with him. You don't have to wait to have everything lined up in your life to be able to serve him. Love covers a multitude of sins. You can, by serving, demonstrate your love for Jesus. And in that, experience his love in return. Third consequence is that we should give. So here, the context is offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. That's a cheery one, isn't it? I wonder how Peter has great insight into the hearts of people, doesn't he? He really does, because sometimes we say, "Oh, you know," to folks, we say, "Oh, you're welcome. Come round anytime." And when they do, like, "Oh, why do they come round now? You know, I've got so much to do. I haven't got much time today." Offer hospitality, he says, without grumbling. This is part of loving deeply. If you're going to love, you're going to give. And giving is so important. I just thought it might be helpful to think about what is hospitality, because I think hospitality is that moment of opening up your space to someone else. And that might be heart space, it might be talking space, it might be home space, but to be hospitable is it to invite someone else into relationship, into your sphere of influence. People need help and they need care. And it might take actually much more than we bargain for. We might invite someone round for a cup of tea and find that they actually need fed, or that they actually need to be talked to for a considerable period of time. To be hospitable is to demonstrate love, and it's to enable someone to experience care and experience attention. And it might not be fully appreciated by them. But whatever you do it without grumbling. So we're to think, we're to love, and we're to give. And then there's one final one which comes here. We are to serve. Each of you, verse 10, should use whatever gift you've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. You know, everyone, what Peter is saying here, everyone has a gift. Everyone has something that you're able to do really well because of who you are, because of the personality you have, because of the experiences you have. Because actually, these are things that come. A gift is something that comes easy, right? You don't have to really think about stuff doing your gift. You just do it because it's not something that you have to think about, whereas someone else might have to really, really think about it. Use whatever gift you have to serve others. Use that thing that comes perhaps naturally to you, that the Holy Spirit, by his power and strength, can supercharge, because he comes in and enables you with a supernatural power and ability. Maybe we don't feel that often enough. Maybe it's because we don't seek it often enough. We maybe need to say to the Lord, okay, here are the things that I think I do quite well, but what is it that you're gifting me with by your Holy Spirit? What is it that you're enabling? What are the supercharged spiritual things that you're giving me the ability to do by your Spirit? Listen to what he says here. He says, basically, that God's grace comes in various forms. Like I don't have all of God's grace. You don't have all of God's grace, but together we might be able to experience more of God's grace because we see, oh, God has gifted me, but he's also gifted you, and he's gifted you, and he's gifted you. And together, as we bring those gifts together, we go, wow, isn't God amazing? He covers the basis. He doesn't expect me to do it all, something I'm very thankful of. Each of you should use your gift. So we need to use it, but the use of it is to serve others. Remember that Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. And if we're going to follow him, we need to do what he does. He came to serve, not to be served. We come now to serve. And we come to the community of God's people not to be served, but to serve. And the incredible thing that happens there when we do that is that actually we are served. You know, Jesus didn't come to be served, but to serve, but he is served. We come not to be served, but to serve, but we are served, because once everyone comes with that mindset, we are served in all sorts of ways. Recognize the God behind your giftings. Ask him to make that clear to you. Ask him to show you, to reveal to you. Ask him to place his supernatural gifts inside you, but recognize the natural gifts that you have and use them for his glory. Look what it says in verse 11. Anyone speaks, they should do so as someone who speaks the very words of God. I try to do that with you guys. And others who get up front here try and do the same thing. Andrew's been trying to do that this morning. If we speak trying to speak with the words of God. We think about it. We try and make sure that our words are measured and careful and contain something of his truth. Look what it says then. This is the inclusive of everyone. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides. Why? So that in all things, God may be praised through Jesus Christ. So folks, we're just going to have a whole bunch of people come up and share just now about the different things that opportunities that you can have to serve in the church. And one of the things we're going to do is we've got sheets of paper out on the tables over here in the corner. And you've done this before, maybe some of you. Every year we try and do this and have a moment, a Sunday and maybe a series of weeks, because not everyone here is here, we recognize, on the same week. But we have this time where you can sign up. And even if you're doing that job right now, we'd love you to recommit by signing up to that thing that you feel called to do. So we're going to just have folk come up and help us to understand a little bit more about the opportunities. You know, we serve with the strength God provides. So we don't just put out chairs, we enable people to worship. You don't just serve tea and coffee, you enable people to encounter God in conversation with each other. Think of it. There's a much, much higher goal going on here because God's involved, because the Spirit is enabling it. So, without too much further ado, I'm going to welcome up to, I've got a series of slides here which have the different opportunities coming up. And the first one I've got up is the grounds and building team. And I'm not sure who's going to come and speak to that. David, are you coming to share a little bit?